This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellow Wall podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 517 of the Yellow Wall Pod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we will talk about Nico Schlotterbeck's return in a 1-0 win against Wolfsburg, and we will preview the games in Mainz and home match in the Champions League against Bilbao on Saturday and Wednesday. For that and more, I'm joined by Lars Bollmann. Hello Lars, how are you doing?
Hello Stefan, as I told you pre-pod, it is quite cold for late September, but I'm braving the cold as the big boy I am. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing splendid. So Lars, how was the news conference today? I heard you asked the question to Dortmund's coach. So do you have any interesting updates from that?
Honestly, no. Obviously I asked the question. I don't think it's this groundbreaking idea that someone going to a press conference gets to ask a question. I tried to do it in a somewhat personal way, so he would, get talking, which he did. I think he appreciated being asked by me about his brother, because he clearly values Robert Kovac's opinion quite highly. Obviously, they've been together in a coaching capacity for 12 years at 4 clubs and the Croatian national team. So that was what I asked him about. And in terms of the actual newsy updates, I think I was surprised to hear that Niklas Süle might already be in the squad against Mainz. Definitely seems nailed on to return during next week, either against Athletic Club or the home match against Leipzig, if I'm not mistaken.
Uh-huh.
Fabio Silva as well might be in the squad against Mainz, but should be good to go at some point next week at the latest. So it seems like where usually this time of year, Dortmund start to lose players to injuries and all that. It seems like this year they seem to be getting stronger almost, but obviously it's only the start of the Englische Wochen. So I'm sure at some point the usual injury crisis is going to creep up again.
Yeah, we'll see about that, but maybe there's surprises. Maybe that's Niko Kovac's superpower. Let's talk about the Wolfsburg game. Obviously, only a 1-0 win, but I felt like after the 4 draw away to Juventus, maybe a 1-0 win was maybe just what the doctor had ordered. What the doctor definitely ordered was Nico Schlotterbeck starting, and honestly, when I looked at the starting lineup, it really took me by surprise. First of all, it was to me surprising overall that Schlotterbeck was already fit, because meniscus injury usually takes quite some time, and I honestly expected him to join a little bit later. Maybe that was just because I got my timeline wrong. But either way, he started and looked really good. I want to say homage almost to Marco Reus, who usually after a long injury in his first game really looked amazing. Since you were at the game, Lars, and especially center back, just like striker, is one of those positions that you actually get a better grasp of how they are playing when you're at the game, especially the press stand, and that view is perfect to evaluate performances like this. I would just hand it over to you and ask you, how did you see Nico Schlotterbeck return?
If I may, I might actually go a bit back, because I was already surprised in the Friday press conference last week when Niko Kovac alluded to Schlotterbeck's return, because that hadn't really been reported on that much. And then I turned up in the press box relatively late, because traffic was a nightmare, and I only got to my parking spot at, what was it, maybe 6:15, and obviously the lineup is for the kickoff at 8:30, given out at 7:30. So I was on my seat when they brought us the lineup sheets, and my first viewpoint was, is Schlotterbeck on the bench? Did he really make the team? Because there was obviously a bit of a question mark.
You skipped the lineup entirely.
Yeah, I wasn't that interested. The first thing I wanted to know was, is Schlotterbeck in the squad? Because obviously that would be of interest in terms of writing about it after the game or doing a video on him. And he wasn't on the bench, so I thought, oh, maybe he had a setback, or maybe they thought better of it. And it only clicked a few moments later when I looked at the starting lineup that he was actually just, regularly starting, which nobody had seen coming. And as they told us after the game, it wasn't necessarily planned. It was probably because Aaron Anselmino couldn't play and they don't really trust Filippo Mane anymore, sadly. And then he was in the starting 11. And I would agree with you. He looked perfectly fine. You couldn't have told from that performance that he was out for 5.5 months or whatever it ended up being. Not every long ball found its target, but that's to be expected when match rhythm is the one question mark. But he didn't lose a single important duel. I was actually surprised to see his dueling stats weren't amazing, but I kind of disregard those sometimes, because when they say a center half only had 5 duels in a game, like, maybe the definition of what a duel is actually wrong, because I'm assuming every center half has more than that. But either way, he didn't have many, problems defending. His great strength obviously is ball playing, and he pinged the ball around, after the first few misfires without any real issues, I thought. So to me, it definitely didn't look like a player who's only now coming back from a lengthy absence. Obviously, the question is sort of, how did he react to it? But it's not really an injury that reactivates it easily. So it's more about, does he still have match fitness after what is now, unfamiliar territory for his body almost. But even those, concerns, if we even want to call them that, maybe small c concerns, were alleviated by Nico Kovac in the press conference, because he said Schlotterbeck is definitely starting against Mainz, and if they have the ability to sub him off, they will take it, but they don't really seem to be holding him back too much. Now, obviously, I would assume that if he starts against Mainz, he wouldn't start both the games against Athletic and Leipzig, but even still, like, for a player to come back from a lengthy injury absence and seemingly not being, or they don't have to hold him back, that's definitely a positive, and certainly also with his performance. Now, and I think we can maybe apply the caveat that Wolfsburg really didn't do too much. Had one scoring opportunity of note in the entire game, and their lady luck was with Dortmund. I didn't look up any replays to see whether it was offside, as Nico Kovac was quite adamant about before.
It looked offside to me in the first replay, but in the second replay, I wasn't entirely sure. So,
either way, Mohamed Amoura's ball came off the crossbar and landed by the smallest of margins, on the line with enough of the ball for goal line technology to say it wasn't a goal. And that was basically that, because Wolfsburg really didn't threaten before or after. So quite comfortable in the end. I think I posted on Blue Sky at halftime that Maxi Bayer, you can only really appreciate, as you kind of alluded to earlier, when you are in his stands and see how much intensity he has in his runs on and off the ball, but he should have been on a hat-trick. He had the header from a nice, was it Riasson cross, and he had the counter-attack where I guess he kind of ran out of steam. But like if he scores one of those, which I'm pretty sure you usually would, then it's a 2-0 lead at halftime after the other Yemi thumper, and then it's basically cruising home. As it was, the second half was a bit boring, but you kind of said it before, like after the Juventus game, having a boring home win against a decent side like Wolfsburg, who I don't think are going to struggle, staying in the league or anything this season, is perfectly fine and acceptable at the end of the first sort of Englische Woche, because obviously they had quite a bit of time after the Juventus game.
Yeah, I mean, there are obviously a few talking points still coming out of this game, even though pretty much everyone has dubbed it as kind of boring and uneventful. I mean, you're right about Maxi Bayer wasting a few chances. That's certainly notable. What's also notable is that Serhou Guirassy did not have a shot until the 87th minute, something we may talk about in a bit, also may not. I don't know. I don't think it's that interesting, but certainly part of the game plan of Wolfsburg to really take Guirassy out of the game. And in so far, it was good to see that other players stepped up. However, only halfway, since Bayer did not actually take the chances that he had. And yeah, I agree with you. At least two he should have scored, I think. But Karim Adeyemi came through, and first of all, another shout out to Marcel Sabitzer, who's really embracing the Jürgen Klopp quote of gegenpressing being the best playmaker, because right now he is creating chances just by winning the ball very high up the field. I think this time it was an interception, not an actual tackle, but either way, he was still playing with a lot of intensity and trying to win balls up high, and this time once again worked out. And yeah, Adeyemi's shot, of course, an absolute thumper. I think 125.8 kilometers per hour, really freaking fast, and almost impossible to save. So really a nice goal. And Nico Schlotterbeck, he was actually talking about this in an interview with the club's own YouTube channel, where he was talking about his comeback. And, first of all, he said that I think the Wolfsburg game is sort of what he had penciled in for himself, that Juventus theoretically would have worked, but not for the full 90 minutes. So that I thought was also an interesting information, that this is sort of the game he had picked out. And he also said that for him, it's also very important to basically work a lot on the strengths you have. And from his perspective, Adeyemi's shot and shooting technique is certainly a strength, and he's glad that Adeyemi worked on that quite a lot. And I think we can see it now. That was a really nice goal, and I think Adeyemi right now is really in a, I don't know if I want to call it the purple patch, but he's certainly on a really good form right now. And I hope, and we need some Kovac magic, that this time he can stay healthy, because very often when Adeyemi is really in amazing form, he pulls a muscle or something happens. So keeping my fingers crossed that this does not happen. And the last point I will make about this game is that I am actually happy that Dortmund did manage to win it. Although they did also look relatively tired at the end, and that to me is medium-sized C concerning how tired they looked after the first Englische Woche, considering that the onslaught will only really start now. But you could already see this Champions League hangover in Frankfurt, who lost 4-3 to Union Berlin at home. And of course, Bayer Leverkusen, who conceded that late equalizer against Gladbach, who's basically scored their first goal of their league campaign in that. So the Leverkusen has been reversed a little bit, and so two competitors for the Champions League Champions League spots dropped important points. So I was very glad that Dortmund held on, especially with the last two corner kicks at the end of the game, because you just never know what happens there. And set pieces has been trending several times over the last decade. So yeah, those are sort of my thoughts, that I really hope that Dortmund can keep it together in terms of stamina, because I don't know how it looked in the stadium, but in the last 10-15 minutes I thought they couldn't quite keep up the pace, and I think Dortmund were a little bit lucky that Wolfsburg lacked urgency. If this is a different team that maybe brings more than 85 away fans and has some oomph to it, this might not be a 1-0 win. I don't know how you see it though.
I think I was a bit surprised at the lack of substitutions because not for the first time this season, Nico Kovac didn't use up all of his opportunities to bring fresh legs off the bench. Unless I'm completely wrong about that, but I don't think I am. I definitely...
No, he made 4 substitutions.
And he has done similarly in other games this season already. Or, brought on, Mane in the 91st also minute against Heidenheim. So
I mean, he brought Özcan on for Sabitzer in 92nd minute. So
yeah. So it seems like right now he has a core of players, that starting 11 plus whomever he brings on in central midfield. Basically, those are central midfield is the one position where he has already rotated a little bit, and right-sided centre half, but that was more out of necessity, I would argue. All the rest of the team has basically, played through the start of the season, whether that's Svensson on the left, Benzipaini left-sided centre half, Couto until the game against Wolfsburg, Riasson when he's been healthy has played all the time. So it's just that seeing as the Englische Wochen only really start now, I still maintain that, theory that the first one doesn't really count because they played Heidenheim Saturday, Juventus Tuesday, and then Sunday evening. So the longest possible break in the Champions League bar, like 2 hours, I suppose, before the Wolfsburg game. So it's going to be different now. Also, the level of competition a bit higher overall, I would say, with the 3 games being Mainz, Athletic Club, and Leipzig. So I'm kind of assuming there's going to be a bit more rotation in those 3 games than there has been so far. Maybe that solves your concerns about tired legs, but I guess they are valid still because we've seen over the last, I don't know, 2.5 seasons that sometimes it feels like they are missing one additional runner from the bench, especially in this Wolfsburg game. Wolfsburg brought on a lot of pace. I don't recall the name of the right winger, but he was the fastest player on the pitch by quite some distance. And it's not like Wolfsburg did anything with it, but still, you have to cover a lot of ground to make sure they don't do anything. And maybe that's why...
Skov, right?
No, he was taken off after a nondescript performance. It was a subbed on right winger, Adam something, jersey number 11. Yeah, honestly, I have no idea who he is, where he comes from. Probably they bought him this summer for a surprising amount of money and he's actually good, but, we are thankfully not a Wolfsburg podcast.
Yeah, we are most clearly not. So yeah, anyway, Dortmund do now sit in second place in the Bundesliga with 10 points, 2 of Bayern, and that game against Bayern will come up in about 3 match days. So yeah, but we're thinking from match to match. And so yeah, Mainz. Although maybe one little interlude, Sergio Guirassy did win, if you want to call it that, the 21st place at the Ballon d'Or. I personally don't have any opinions on that, honestly. I'm never really interested in these kind of rankings and whether he should have ranked higher or not. If you have a take, be my guest. If not, congrats to Serhu on this honor, and obviously it was cool to see 6 total nominations of current and previous Dortmund players.
Yeah, that was
including
cool.
The winner.
I called it Ballon Dortmund a few weeks ago. As for Guirassy, I think 21st place is actually quite good for a player who didn't win anything. Obviously, he was co-top scorer in both the Champions League and the FIFA Club World Cup, but those aren't real honors, I would say. So when you look at Michael Olise, who was, I don't think there's any doubt, the best Bundesliga player last season, and he finished last in 30th place. Maybe that's something to look at, but ever since, obviously the Ballon d'Or, behind the 2 or 3 guys who can actually win it, it's basically irrelevant. But ever since Mats Hummels came tied 29th after Dortmund made the Champions League final, he was by far the best defender in the Champions League. And Hummels didn't get a single vote after being in the top 30. that at the latest, that is when people should have realized that all the placings behind, let's say, 5th or so really don't matter at the Ballon d'Or. And even those top 5 arguably don't matter because it's like a beauty contest. Sometimes it feels like, especially since Messi and Ronaldo are no longer really in the picture. Like, I don't know if anyone would pick Ousmane Dembélé as actually the best footballer in the world. But, PSG won everything, and so it probably had to be one of those guys.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, I'm happy for Ousmane. He's a really amazing footballer. I have no idea if he is currently the best ever. Sorry, not the best ever, but the best to play this last season or so. Whatever. Let's just move on. We have smaller fish to fry, which is as a FSV Mainz 05, who are currently 13th in the Bundesliga, but they did manage to beat Augsburg resoundingly, even though they went down to 10 men relatively early with Dominic Kor getting sent off for second booking. So that means he's going to be suspended against Dortmund. So yeah, Dortmund ankle rejoice. I think he got sent off around the 50th or so minute. So Mainz were down to 10 for still a relatively long time, but somehow managed to score 2 more goals. Augsburg had then some Ergebnis-Kosmetik, as we say in German, some result cosmetics in the 83rd minute, but that did not matter. Mainz are a tricky opponent and will forever be attached to some trauma for us. At least it's an away game, if that makes it any better. I also don't know if Dortmund will bring out their beautiful away kit again. Probably not, since it might screw with Mainz's color scheme. Anyway, Lars, what can we expect? What should we expect from this game? You already talked a little bit about potential returns like Niklas Süle and Fabio Silva being upgraded to, I don't know if you want to call it doubtful or questionable from out, but at least there's a chance they might make the matchday squad. Do you expect any other rotation? Also, maybe, I know maybe coaches don't think like that, but also already with one eye on the game on Wednesday against Athletic Club de Bilbao.
I mean, first of all, the injury designation doubtful has been eliminated by the NFL a couple of years ago, so everyone who isn't a full go is questionable. And I would probably put Süle and Silva in that category, especially because it's not like they desperately need them to, fill up the squad. Against Wolfsburg, they still had Cole Campbell and Filippo Mane on the bench, so maybe those are 2 spots that you could upgrade to Silva and Süle, but it's not like, they would be desperate to have those guys on the bench if they aren't, fully fit to also feature, because that's always my sort of take. If I put a player on the bench, I should be happy with him playing at least like 30 or so minutes. Otherwise, why even have him in the squad? Unless it's, one of those young guys who can, profit from just being around professionals and maybe getting a short run on the pitch, especially for an attacking player like Campbell. I think they can kind of benefit from every minute they can get. In terms of rotation, I'm somewhat skeptical because usually you wouldn't rotate, in advance necessarily, especially considering Nico Kovac spoke somewhat glowingly of Mainz, despite their, I guess you could say, lackluster start to the season. Spoke very highly of Bo Henriksen, Mainz's coach, who took them on when they were 17th and they finished in the Conference League playoff spot. And I'm pretty sure they made the Conference League. They just start so late because they still have, a normal 6 game group stage, if I'm not mistaken. So they aren't starting now with the Europa League or last week with the Champions League. So that also means, I guess, that Mainz will be a little bit fresher than Dortmund. And obviously Mainz's game is predicated on intensity under Bo Henriksen. who's a bit of a, I don't know, dervish. Is that a term people are familiar with? On
I'm not, but
on the touchline. So maybe he's like very energetic, I would say, and obviously tries to get the crowd involved. I think famously he goes to the home fans like a half an hour before the game or whenever, and gets them to, you know, be riled up for the game. And to Mainz's credit, they have been for the most part since he's taken over. Obviously, the start to this season has been again somewhat lackluster, but maybe they've turned the corner with the game against Augsburg. Obviously, losing Dominic Kor is addition by subtraction, because I think there are not many players we on the Yellow Wall Pod have such a streamlined opinion on, but Dominic Kor is definitely one of them. I don't know who's going to replace him, but I would guess he's a better player, but maybe less of a hard ass. So win-win for Dortmund. I don't know. I think generally speaking, this is the kind of game where you kind of hope just to somehow win and nobody asks how we did it. And, you know, if they end up dropping points there, I could definitely see a scenario where, you know, 6 months from now, looking back, a team like Dortmund dropping points at Mainz won't be considered crazy, or, you know, however did Dortmund fumble the bag there. It's just that Mainz are, you know, pretty solid, and with their intensity, it can be difficult to play against them.
well, I actually only saw from Mainz. I mean, I was watching the 4-box multi-view actually, so I did see more of them against Augsburg, but I wasn't really paying much attention to that game, even though a lot of happened there. But I did see more of them play against Cologne. It was almost a scoreless draw until Cologne nicked it. I don't know if it was injury time or just before that. But either way, Mainz then looked very pedestrian, but that is only the first match day. Against Augsburg, they looked much more in sync than on match day 1. I'll say this much, and yeah, I think that especially with Amiri, they have especially midfield someone who really is I don't know if he's a maestro, but I really like how much influence he has in the game, how good he's on the ball, and I'm surprised he's still playing for Mainz. Currently, he's obviously the captain. They have a lot of pace, and I think they will definitely give Dortmund a bigger test than Wolfsburg did, especially in terms of intensity. So I really hope that Dortmund can decide this game early, just as Nico Kovac is also hoping, because if not, I think it's going to be a little bit problematic in the last 20-ish minutes or so if Mainz make a big push. So yeah, hopefully Dortmund will have decided the game. In terms of lineup from Dortmund's perspective, would you make any changes to this starting 11 that we have now seen against Wolfsburg?
Probably not. I mean, most of the team kind of selects itself at this point when they're healthy. Like there isn't too much competition for the likes of all 5 defenders, I would say. Obviously, Jan Kauto could play over Riasson, but like, why would you do that? Sabitzer has impressed me quite a bit, as you alluded to earlier, in terms of ball winning and his work rate. Obviously, he lacks a bit of pace, but to be fair, I think Amiri himself is also not the quickest player. So in terms of that matchup in like the 10 space for Mainz, that's not necessarily a huge issue. I would be more concerned with the runs from deep spaces from Paul Nebel, for example. Mecha has done well. The 3 attacking players are working together quite nicely. I don't necessarily see a point in taking, let's say, Bayer off and adding Julian Brandt, whose performances as a substitute were at least a little bit weird, if not just bad. I don't know. I think it's
I thought it was relatively bad, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, both of them. Like, we have to include the Juventus one because he obviously came on there too. So it was just strange because he came on and he should have an advantage physically over tired defenders, but he kind of lost his legs when counterattacking, and he kind of lost the ball a few times. So I don't know. I don't think this is the kind of Julian Brandt that you are desperate to see return to the starting 11. So just keep it as it is because things have been clicking for the most part. And then worry about, freshness maybe in the other 2 games of the week.
Yeah, the only real talking point I've seen sort of pushed by the media in and around Dortmund. I don't know if you're part of that or not, because I've not really had much time to read what you're writing this week, honestly, but things I've seen on Twitter and other podcasts and whatnot is Joe Bellingham, since he is Dortmund's record signing, I guess, that he's not really featuring. I'm still in nothing burger territory, honestly. If he is basically rotting on the bench for the entire half season, okay, that's gonna be concerning. But as of right now, I'm very much okay with Kovac picking Sabitzer and Mecha. I think eventually it would be good to have Bellingham integrate that, but I'm also okay with Dortmund not rushing things for him. I understand that there's a certain impatience, and obviously the stories coming out with his dad, creating a little bit of a fuss, also not ideal, but still I'm okay with subbing him on and sort of easing him into playing. Obviously, I too am curious to see how he would do next to Felix Metscher, for example, as a number 6, and how that would work. And obviously, I would love to see how Chukwuemeka plays if he plays from the beginning. But I'm not sure if Chukwuemeka is there yet either. So I guess these are just players right now that are coming off the bench to create some spark. And I think, in terms of tired legs, counter brigade, Bellingham and Chukwuemeka are really good substitutes. So if Dortmund need a late spark, I think these are definitely 2 guys that can make a difference for Dortmund. So if you don't have any other thoughts on that game, we might as well move on to the Champions League game, which is on Wednesday. And right now that feels very far away. Bilbao are right now in 5th place in La Liga. And their first game in the Champions League was a 2-0 loss at home to Arsenal. So that's obviously nothing to frown about because Arsenal are a very good team. And so, yeah, I'm really intrigued about this matchup because right now I don't have the time to watch much of La Liga, even though it's a very good and fun team. And usually Club Athletic are a very fun team to watch and also have their own identity. So usually always a good game to preview, but I just lack the capability to do that right now. But luckily for me, Lars, you've already touched on that subject a little bit more. So why don't you tell me what Dortmund are going to expect in their first home match in the Champions League on Wednesday evening?
Well, I don't know what Dortmund are expecting. I talked to a German but Basque country-based journalist today, but the piece is only coming out, I guess, Monday. There's likely going to be a long-form YouTube interview, so maybe people want to watch that. I don't know if, auto-generated subtitles really work these days on YouTube, but give it a go. If it doesn't work, just let it run in the background.
Getting better, honestly.
I hate reading subtitles, and seeing as I don't really watch anything in languages I don't understand outside of maybe like crime shows from Spanish speaking countries, which I kind of can understand to an extent. Like I just don't really like reading subtitles. I don't know, maybe it takes away from the immersion or whatever. So, but anyway, Athletic Club kind of or let's put it this way, they aren't really mainstays in the Champions League, so they've never had a competitive fixture against Dortmund. They met in preseason once, like 2 or 3 years ago, if memory serves, but it's not like there's a rich tradition of Dortmund facing them or vice versa. So it's kind of a bit of an unknown. As you alluded to, they lost their home opener, as it were, to Arsenal. According to the expert I talked to, Dirk Segbers, they did reasonably well in that game and then conceded 2 goals, and that was that. So, like, a fairly box standard defeat to one of, I don't know, the top 6 or so favorites for the Champions League title, I guess, even though it's Arsenal and they never win the Champions League. Shout out to Lewis.
Well, who knows? Leverkusen won the Bundesliga, so maybe Arsenal can win a Champions League now. I don't know. I have no idea. Even Spurs got a title. The universe is shifting.
More recently than Dortmund, I might once again add, after last week, Stefan.
Yeah. Salt in our wounds, Lars.
So in terms of how Athletic actually play, the expert told me, high intensity, quite robust. I don't know, sometimes these stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason, the robustness. And obviously, I think the players most people will be familiar with from a Dortmund side of things are the Williams brothers. Nico Williams, European champion with Spain, played in amazing Euros in 24. And Iñaki Williams has been around Athletic forever, it feels like, is their captain now. In goal, Unai Simon, Spanish national goalkeeper. So they have a good team. Obviously, maybe the most prominent signing of the summer was Aymeric Laporte, but he's not eligible to play in the Champions League because his signing by Athletic Club was only permitted by FIFA after the fact, so to speak. And they have one other centre half on a doping ban. Yeray Alvarez, I think is his name, and another centre half tore his ACL. So they have a bit of, personnel issues in defense, which obviously most of our listeners will be somewhat familiar with. So, yeah, I think, especially having dropped 2 points, I suppose, in Turin, this is kind of, I don't like calling games must-win games, because either every game is a must-win game or they don't exist, kind of, if you know what I mean. But this is definitely one Dortmund should not lose or, drop points in, because then, like, it becomes a bit of a mathematical challenge given the quality of opponents Dortmund are facing away from home in the Champions League. So they should, kind of take care of business at home to not get into a spiral where you desperately need a result against a very good side, on the road.
Especially since it's the beginning of, really tough fixtures, I would say winning here is a really high priority, because there's a chance that you might drop points later that you expected not to drop. So same goes for the Mainz game. Honestly, you just talked about it, and if we apply the Maxi Bayer standard of these other games, you gotta win if you want to win a championship. Obviously, does not apply to Athletic Club, but nevertheless, I think both games we are previewing, if Dortmund drop points in either one, I think it's going to be a disappointment and also a bit of a headache. I expect this to be a tough matchup, especially against Spanish sides. Dortmund usually have a good record at home, but it's never quite that easy. And I don't know how you rate Ernesto Valverde as a coach, but I always kind of thought relatively highly of him, even if his period at Barcelona was a bit controversial. But still, I don't think Dortmund will face an idiot at the other part of the sideline. So that's just something to keep in mind.
I mean, how often would you say do they face idiots on the sideline?
I don't know. Every now and then there's someone for sure. too often it's been the idiot on in our dugout that's been the problem. But
No,
honestly,
that's too harsh, Stefan. Like
that is
I
very
don't
harsh.
think honestly, like especially nowadays, there might have been a point a few years ago when these Bundesliga teams always went for the retreads. No disrespect to, let's say, Stefan Fronzek, but him getting like his third chance in the Bundesliga, that sort of thing doesn't seem to be happening anymore. And especially with Champions League sides, like I'm pretty sure they are all reasonably well coached. So that's not something I ever really think about, to be honest. Like either positively or negatively, I'm not thinking about this game and thinking, oh, they are facing Ernesto Valverde. Like, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, coaching can definitely make a difference, as we all know. But yeah, I'm at least in the mode right now where I'm looking forward again to Dortmund playing football, and the officials of this team made this sort of one of the goals that after a game, Dortmund fans already look forward to the next one. At least for right now, that box is ticked. I don't know how you feel about it. I'm like not like exuberant excitement, but I have some anticipation. So there's that, and I mean a Champions League night is always a Champions League night, and these games do matter right now. It's not a dead rubber match for sure. So I'm certainly trying to make time to watch this game live on Wednesday.
I think I have to, because I'm obviously working, and never will I be more angry at UEFA for kicking games off at 9 p.m. German time. It's just not something that fits in my lifestyle, because usually I'm in bed by like 10 or 10:30. So that's not possible. But I want to give one quick, recommendation or whatever. But with Dortmund facing Athletic in the Champions League, they are also facing them in the UEFA Youth League. And I've quickly fallen in love with Dortmund's current under-19 team under new coach Felix Hirschnagel. Watching them live quite a few times. I can't watch them live on Saturday because they are playing, 90 minutes ahead of the men's team. But they are very fun to watch. Obviously, a lot of our American listeners will like to hear that Mathis Albert is usually like heads and shoulders above everyone else on the pitch when I've seen the team. They won away to Juventus, and people need to realize that Dortmund's under-19 team, most of them are, in their first year of eligibility for the under-19. Some of them could still be playing at the under-17 level. So it's quite impressive what they are doing. And Athletic have one of the more famous academies in Spain. I mean, they kind of need to, because of their rigid policy of, signing only Basque players or players who were trained at Basque clubs. So that should be a really cracking game on Wednesday afternoon. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be streamed somewhere, and maybe some of our listeners will even have the chance to watch the game live. I think it's at 4 p.m. at Dortmund's training center. Parking can be a bit of an issue, but there's a bus line, and I think it could be like a very fun, full day almost of first seeing the under-19s, which is just playing really interesting, good football, nice boys, as it were. They seem to have a good attitude as well to playing this new kind of football, which is quite different from what Mike Tullberg wanted to do. And then, traveling to the Westfalenstadion, presumably some of the Athletic fans will be at both games as well. They are rumored to be very fanatic, but, nice about it. So it's not the same necessarily like going to an away game at Atletico Madrid or Sevilla and being beaten up by police, Spanish police. It's going to be a much nicer day for it. So, that's my recommendation for Wednesday. And if at all possible, I will do the double as well, watching both games live.
Yeah, and while we're at it, the under 19 obviously has some really exciting talent, and we can probably spend a little bit more time on them and what kind of prospects may be of relevance for the first team soon. But we should also mention that on Monday at I think 6:30 local time, there will be also another historic fixture, which I don't know if any of the previously mentioned will be historic, but that one for sure will be, because Dortmund's women's team will host Bayern Munich in the DFB-Pokal. The game will be at Stadion Rote Erde. I assume it's going to be a sellout. Obviously, Bayern will be heavy favorites in this one, since they are, I don't know if they're reigning champions.
Yeah.
I think they are. So Dortmund are still a little bit away from the Bundesliga, but they are making their way up through the ranks. I think they're in the 4th division right now. Correct me if I'm wrong. Third. But they did get promoted with a derby win against Schalke, which was really sweet, of course, to the 3rd division. So ideally, they will be in the Bundesliga in 2 seasons, but obviously I don't know if they can keep that timeline going. But they've been quick risers so far, and it's definitely something I will also keep an eye out for, because even if this does not result in a win, I think the potential of having women's football in Dortmund and eventually also in the Signal Iduna Park is certainly there, and that would maybe be the start of that, if you will. I mean, it would be amazing if Dortmund will hold the record for a sold out Westfalenstadion, and with that, the record of most visitors for German women's game. That is something.
Just one quick thing. Because I don't want people to think, that because of the Champions League men's game, they made the women play in the smaller Stadion Rote Erde. It's actually because they want the let's say home field advantage they have in their usual stadium. At least that's the official line. I don't know if maybe somewhat of a combination of both factors, because obviously having a game on Monday night wouldn't be ideal in terms of preparation for Wednesday night, but still, it's going to be a sellout crowd. Additional capacity, I think it's going to be something like 16,000, so a bit more than usual at the Rote Erde, which is, like, if you've never been, it's a historic ground. Obviously, sort of the root of modern Borussia Dortmund, so definitely worth a visit as well. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be very hard at this stage to get tickets for that game. But yeah, I mean, if by some miracle they beat Bayern Munich, that's probably the biggest sensation in German women's football ever. I don't know. I'm not necessarily au fait with German women's DFB-Pokal, to my great shame, I suppose. It's definitely on my list for this season to also watch some of their home games in the Rote Erde, because I've actually never been to an official game at that stadium either. So it's I don't know if it qualifies for my bucket list, but it's definitely on the list, or a list.
Well, I'm very romantic about the Rote Erde for several reasons. First of all, this was the ground where I had the Bundesjugendspiele, because I obviously grew up very close to the stadium, and so when I was doing athletics as a young boy, I was training in the Rote Erde or at the Helmut Koenig Halle right across from it. So certainly in more than one way, this stadium means home to me, but also I do believe that the Stadion Rote Erde has actually a better Bratwurst than the Westfalenstadion. So, we've watched a couple of games there, and the beer is cheaper, the Bratwurst is better, and just to stand there and sort of enjoy this atmosphere, I think it's the under 23s I've been to. I don't know. There's just a certain thing about it that if you're a Dortmund fan and you're visiting and you can somehow make it work, that you can visit the Stadion Rote Erde and catch a football game there, I would highly recommend that. It's obviously a very different experience, and usually it's relatively empty, but still it's a really amazing football experience, and it has a bit of a throwback vibe, obviously, for the reasons you alluded to. But yeah, I can highly recommend catching a game at the Steinrote Erde. Anyway, that should conclude the episode for this week. Once again, thank you, Lars, for joining me, and yeah. We should say that Matthias shall return soon. Maybe he will also make a surprise appearance to our starting 11. Right now he's still out sick, so get well soon, Matthias. And yeah, like I always say, thank you all out there for listening, and we'll be back with another episode after the game against Bilbao. Until then, goodbye.